right, just a reminder, the Norman office covers these 56 counties, and some of what we're talking about today may be specific to our office. It may not apply to every office. So just the disclaimer, we always have people that are coming in from other areas, which is perfectly fine, but I just want to get that out there in front. We're not going to talk in detail about this. I'm assuming that most of you, since you got the email about this, know about our email list and get notifications of webinars and things like that, but just a reminder of the special information services we provide to you, our partners in public safety, emergency management, broadcast media, our email list. We do other routine webinars, Mondays at 10, Thursdays at 2, and then we'll send emails out for significant events and do special webinars leading up to severe weather events that we think are more important to discuss via the webinar. And we're also not going to talk extensively about NWS Chat. We'll reference it, but if you have an NWS Chat account, you know that we're going to use it extensively during severe weather season. If you don't have one and you're interested, just go to noaa.gov/NWS Chat. Everybody that's on this call is not eligible for an NWS Chat account, I'm venturing to guess, but a lot of you are. So if you had an account and it's been deactivated for some reason, let me know. But NWS Chat is the most valuable tool we have to communicate with you, our partners. So if you're not on it and you so it goes from marginal to high in the Storm Prediction Center, and we, by extension, issue outlooks from the day 1 period, which is today, all the way through days 4 through 8, which would be 3 to 7 days from now. Some general outlook facts. For the most part, SPC outlooks are issued at set times. They are starting to do some updates in between, so it's rarely right now. That may become more frequent. I know they're trying to do that. They're kind of set in stone there for a while, and they just did not update them in between. So in some cases, if you look at our webpage and you look at the SPC graphics, they may be slightly different. And the main reason for that would be we decided to not wait for them to update their outlook for us to update ours. So if it's 10 o'clock in the morning on a severe weather day and there's clear-cut information or data that we really believe indicates the need to upgrade an area, to change an area, we're probably not going to wait till 11:30 when they put out their scheduled outlook. We're going to go ahead and do that early so you can get the information as early as possible. We will explain that in chat. We always walk next door and coordinate that with them. We may also, on rare occasions, shift the risk areas, combine adjacent risk areas on those outlooks. So what do these different categories mean? There's a lot of confusion. These categories, these words, for the most part, the original slight, moderate, and high, were really invented back in the day in this, I don't know, 50s, 60s, a bunch of white guy meteorologist in a room, probably wearing short sleeve white shirts and really skinny black ties, maybe a pack of cigarettes in their pocket, the stereotypical geeky meteorologist at that time. And they came up with words that they understood because the original convective outlooks were not intended for the public. They were intended at talking to other meteorologists. So That's how they were developed, so they don't really make sense to everybody out there. So here's kind of an explanation in the simplest possible terms of what these mean. A marginal risk does not necessarily mean the storms will only be marginally severe. It means some severe storms are expected in the marginal risk area, but they're going to be not very organized, they're going to be not very long-lived, and or there's not going to be many of them. So that's really a marginal risk. Don't believe that bad things can happen in a marginal risk. That just is really talking about the number of storms and the coverage. Let's see, what happened to okay, there we go. The slight risk does not mean slightly severe. Slight risk is where we are expecting more organized storms. They're still not going to be widespread, but the key phrase in this definition is varying levels of intensity. So there is nothing to downplay a slight risk. We've had significant tornadoes and all kinds of things happen in a slight risk area. It is not talking about the intensity of the storms. It is talking about the number or the coverage of storms when we're talking about that. The enhanced risk was added in the last several years. It's just talking about a greater coverage, still with those varying levels of intensity. The real term, the full name for enhanced, is an enhanced slight risk. So it's a slight risk that's just a little bit above. They wanted to put something in between slight and moderate. So the enhanced slight risk, or enhanced for short, is we're expecting more storms, but still some may be low and severe, and there may be strong tornadoes that happen in a slight or an enhanced risk. When we get up into the moderate and high risk, that's when we start to talk about more about the intensity of the storms. The other categories don't address that. So moderate risk is when we're expecting more widespread severe weather. This could be a bunch of severe thunderstorms with damaging wind and very large hail, or several tornadoes. Moderate risk does not always imply a tornado outbreak or just tornadoes. Moderate risk can be issued for just really strong systems that have excessive damaging winds. And when we get into the high risk category, that's really reserved for those situations where there's higher confidence in a severe weather outbreak, numerous intense, possibly long track, possibly violent tornadoes in that high risk area. So yeah, that's kind of a breakdown of what those risk categories mean. And again, they're not easily understood by the public and by others just based on the terms that are used there. SPC is working with social scientists and looking down the road for ways to maybe put this in plain English a little bit more. So we'll stay tuned for that. Risk categories do not tell the whole story. There were several cases just this past spring where really significant events happened in a marginal or a slight risk. One of those days was, down in the Hollister-Loveland area was a marginal risk day. This was May 19th, Sunday, May 19th of last year. We had an enhanced risk over northwest Oklahoma, well up into Kansas. That's where everything seemed to be centered. And then there was a slight risk down to I-40 and a larger marginal risk, that green shaded area covering the rest of the area that you see there. The area of interest where we're going to focus on here was in a kind of halfway in a slight risk and in an enhanced risk. Well, in that I keep messing up the terms, yellow, slight, green, marginal. Okay. This is what happened. We had a supercell develop right on the Texas-Oklahoma state line in Roger Mills County at 6:08 p.m. We issued our first warning, and that storm persisted until 10:34, all the way into the Oklahoma City, Norman metro areas with tornadoes all along the path. So this is a case where we definitely, if you discounted this event just because it was only a marginal risk, then you might have had problems. So we had all kinds of things going on. We had 3 simultaneous tornadoes going on. We issued a tornado emergency for Custer City. We had an anticyclonic tornado on I-40. Then we had 3 tornadoes going on simultaneously, Yukon, Mustang, El Reno, Union City, out in that area. So definitely a significant weather event that, again, if you're focused only in those risk categories, you were not as prepared as you might have been. All right, So just real quickly, we're going to go through the day 4 through 8, day 3, 2, 1 outlooks, kind of talk about them. The day 4 through 8 outlook is issued only one time a day, and that's issued at 4 a.m., whether we're in Central Daylight Time or CST. There's 4 different possibilities that you will get with the day 4 through 8 outlook. It will either say potential too low, it will say predictability too low, it will have a 15% yellow shape there drawn on the map, or it will have a yellow and an orange 15 and 30% area drawn on the map. The 15% area equates to a slight risk. The 30% area equates to what would be an enhanced risk. Each outlook has 5 individual graphics, one for each day of the 4 through 8 period. If we have a situation where it says predictability too low, especially this time of year, I would suggest go ahead and reading the outlook. The predictability too low means there are severe storms possible based on some of the model scenarios that SPC is looking at, and either they're not confident enough in the location or the likelihood of the storms to draw that yellow 15% area yet. So the predictability too low discussion part will explain, that, and it may very well say, we're not quite ready to draw an area over Oklahoma and North Texas, but we believe that may happen tomorrow. So that'll just give you a little additional heads up. Now, we may produce outlook graphics before the SPC ever does a 15 or 30% area. If we are confident in the possibility of severe weather, SPC is pretty conservative with these. They like to have a decent level of confidence before they go out with either of a 15 or a 30. So we may do it before them just to get, again, a little bit more heads up out there. So yeah, the predictability too low, a larger area of severe potential may be realized on Monday, deep layer shear, organized severe storms. There's too much spread on the models for us to introduce an area yet, but that's strong wording in there that indicates, yeah, there are signs that if this develops, as we're seeing some of the models indicate, it could be a big deal, but we're not ready to draw that yet. We will take typically, unless we just draw our own, we will take the graphic that they draw, whether it's a 15 or a 30, we'll translate it onto our map of our county warning area and use the same colors. We won't use the percentages, we'll use slight or enhanced. The day 3 outlook, there's been a change with this one. Up until just recently, this was only issued one time a day. Now they've started issuing the day 3 outlook 2 times a day. So it's issued at 2:30 in the morning, regardless of CDT or CST, and there'll be an update at 2:30 in the afternoon, at 2:30 Central Time. And that's interesting because that's something, a brand new issuance that they're adding this year. So if we're really interested in what's going on in the day 3 period, we now have 2 times daily where we'll get to see what SPC is thinking about that risk. The day 2 outlook is for tomorrow. So that's issued 2 times a day. That comes out at 1 o'clock in the morning with an update at 12:30 in the afternoon. And I'm not going into detail, but every one of these outlooks, when it has an enhanced slight marginal, all of those come out of the probability of storms, of tornadoes, wind, and hail. So that's where those words come from. The day 1 outlook actually comes out 5 times a day. They do one at 1 o'clock in the morning, but then they'll do really the first one that most of us are getting up and checking on a spring severe weather day is the one at 8 a.m. They do an update at 11:30. The 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. updates, if we're on a severe weather day and we're in the typical time frame, people don't pay as much attention to those because we're already issuing watches and warnings, but that 8 a.m. and 11:30 are critical ones that everybody's going to pay close attention to. The SPC will use hatching on their maps to indicate the potential for significant severe storms. Now, the meteorologist definition of significant is they're expecting either an EF2 or higher tornado, and/or hail 2 inches or larger, and/or winds 75 miles an hour or higher. So they start that hatched area. They'll do it as early as on day 3, and then they will do the hatching, and that indicates a 10% greater chance of significant severe weather as it's identified right there by that definition. Remember, keep questions coming. If you got questions, comments, you don't have to wait till the end. Keep them coming. I'm keeping an eye on the questions over here, and we can address them as we go. Also, yeah, I know we had an audio outage as forecast, but hopefully that's the last one for this webinar. All right, let's keep going. We've got a lot to talk about. You can see the SPC outlooks in a variety of places, numerous apps have them. You can go to spc.noaa.gov. If you're in NWS chat, the day one outlooks will be posted in our data feed channel if they include part of our county warning area, but you can go to spc.noaa.gov, click on convective outlook, and you'll see the breakdown of day 1, 2, 3, and 4 through 8. A couple of special links, and I'll send these links out in the email if you can't write them down fast enough. But this is one of the, when I open up all my tabs in the morning on my browser, this is one that's always up there. This is an 8-panel, just a quick glance look at the day 1 through 8 outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. And it kind of just gives you an overview of the week ahead. I think this is a good way to kind of keep an eye on things. And if you see that shaded area, or if you start to see the dreaded predictability too low on there, you can dig into it a little bit in a little bit more detail. SPC has also started to provide the outlooks in more zoomed in versions of maps. So you can go to this site, and again, you'll get that URL, and you can get graphics that show the outlook in the traditional national scale. You can do it by National Weather Service office county warning areas. You can do it by states. You can do it by FEMA regions. You can do it by Weather Service regions. And that's a great tool too. So we use those in briefings sometimes, and anybody can access those. They also will include the fire weather outlooks all the way to 8 days. So that's a good site to bookmark. So reminders on outlooks, remember that the lines on the map are fuzzy. They look a lot more precise than they really are. I mean, they have to draw a line somewhere, and they have to put categories in there. But remember, the storms don't know the lines are there. They don't know what category or how bad they're supposed to be based on the category that they're in. Outlooks will always have uncertainty. They are never set in stone, even on the most, what we think is a slam dunk, it's happening today kind of thing. They're not always going to be perfect. So there's always uncertainty. And we already talked about, don't get hung up on the categories, because bad things can happen in any risk. Higher risk somewhere else doesn't mean your risk is lower. On May 19th, the higher risk was way up in western Kansas, but it was high enough along I-40 with that supercell that moved down the interstate. And this is important too. I think a lot of people, especially the public and the social media world, will instantly start calling a forecast a bust if they don't get a storm in their backyard. Not everybody in any outlook area is going to see severe weather. Some people in the outlook area are not going to see a storm. Some won't see a drop of rain. Some may not even see a cloud in these outlook areas, but that's how it works. Not everybody in the outlook is going to see severe weather. The Norman outlooks will take the SPC outlooks. We usually directly mirror them both in the categories and the areas, and we will just localize it, put it on our CWA background map. We are going to start doing more statewide graphics in the future, so we finally got that straightened out where we can do that. So you'll see more statewide graphics coming in some shape, form, or fashion from us. One of the things we add to our graphics is the tornado, hail, and wind potential over on the side. So we'll put the maximum hail size, wind speed, and tornado potential. Those numbers, those values are for anywhere in our 56 county area. So it's just the worst that it may be anywhere in our area. So for every severe weather outlook, usually the day 2 and 3 especially, or the day 2 and 1 outlooks, we do a suite of graphics. We'll always do just the risk categories. If there's tornado potential, we'll do a tornado graphic, and we will do a timing graphic. Those are the 3 things that you can kind of expect to come out as a set when we're updating these. So our tornado potential graphics come from the SPC tornado category of the tornado probability. So let's say, for example, they have a 15% probability of tornadoes over much of Oklahoma and North Texas. They've got the hatching in there indicating some significant severe weather. We have a chart where we convert their outlook into our words that we use. So on this day, There's a 15% probability of tornadoes, so that equates to a medium tornado potential, and that's what we have on our graphic. The way that I would use these tornado potential graphics, I look at them in a relative sense. So I look at it as medium is, we don't do mediums or especially highs that often with the tornado potential. And on this particular graphic, generally speaking, the tornado probabilities are lower the further northwest you go in Oklahoma. They're not zero, but they're higher over the area that you see shaded in yellow. So that's roughly how I would suggest using those. One of the most important graphics to one of the most important graphics for our partners, especially our public safety emergency management partners, is the timing graphic. And we work hard to produce these for every severe weather event. We're constantly evolving these. This format that you see here was just developed on the fly after we heard about an event that happened a few years ago. In the format that we're using now, we will, in most cases, divide the area up based on the blocks of time, and we'll do it color-coded and by number. And then over on the left-hand side, you'll see the blocks of text that say earliest start, the most likely time, and the ending time. That's for that entire area 1 that you see the lightest blue shading there. There's very complex situations where we may have to do separate timing graphics. It's almost, well, very, very often it is not nice and neat where we have one round of storms, one line that's just going to go west to east, and then that makes for an easy timing graphic. This was a very complex day, April 27th of last year, where we had the big tornado outbreak in south central, southeast Oklahoma after dark. But we don't like to put these wide ranges of times, but area 3 there, for example, the most likely time is from noon to midnight. That's a 12-hour period. Sometimes that's the best we can do, unless we can identify 2 distinct periods of severe weather. We're going to always make it as easy to understand as we can, but these timing graphics can be a real bear to produce sometime. I know they're one of the most useful things, and we know people are paying attention to them, so we work hard on these. The storm motion, we're going to try to put the storm motion up there. We haven't been consistent with that, but one of the main questions on a severe weather day for spotters and just in general, which way the storm's going to be moving and how fast. These can be exceptionally challenging for the forecasters, especially when we have multiple rounds of storms. It has kind of become just standard practice that we do these now. We're going to start trying to do them more for day 2. And, I can't see us doing detailed ones for day 3, but if we can give you an approximation, we'll try to do that too. What the times mean may vary by graphic. Usually we're talking about when is severe weather most likely. So this graphic says the timing of severe weather. It's not inconceivable. You could get showers or storms before that. So just know that we may have a graphic at some point that says, that's focusing on a different range of time or different definition of the time range. So just keep an eye. Most of the time it's going to be talking about here's the most likely window for severe weather. We do update our suite of graphics every time SPC updates theirs. They do their routine updates, whether they've changed anything or not. And we really encourage our forecasters, or really ask that our forecasters update our graphics, even if we don't change a thing, because people look at the timestamp up in the top right-hand corner, and if they see it hasn't been updated since 3 o'clock in the morning and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it looks like, we haven't updated it. So we do update it with every SPC change. Check the new graphics to see what's changed, especially with timing. We'll try to put what we've changed on the timing graphic, because subtle differences in that, an hour difference, can make a difference in your decision making. We know that. And there's always going to be uncertainty. Be careful using the exact times for critical decisions. If we say severe storms are most likely in your jurisdiction between 1 p.m. and 5 p.m., that doesn't mean necessarily that you should be wrapping up whatever preparations you're doing at 12:55. I mean, we'll put the earliest start time in there as well to give some cushion on the front end, and we'll always be really generous with that cushion on the front end of the timing graphics, just in case things happen a little bit earlier than expected, if that makes sense. SPC mesoscale discussions, these are the next step in the process as we ramp up to severe weather. These are discussions, technical discussions written by the meteorologists next door at the Storm Prediction Center, and they have very valuable information. There's new information in these MDs this year, and there's 3 reasons SPC would issue a mesoscale discussion for our area. One reason is if they're going to issue a watch, or they're considering a watch, or they don't expect to issue a watch. They will use that MD to explain any of those things. What's new this year is the graphic that you see on the SPC website. Over on the left-hand side, there's now the most probable peak intensity. So they're now plotting on every severe weather MD the probabilistic maximum intensity values for the tornadoes, wind, and hail for the 4 hours after the mesoscale discussion comes out. So this is controversial internally in the Weather Service with some offices, but they're actually giving you a forecast of the peak tornado intensity and the peak wind and the peak hail. We do the peak wind and the peak hail in our graphics, but the idea of forecasting the intensity of the wind, which you could go and equate to an EF rating, is new. They've done a lot of research, a lot of background has gone into that, and they wouldn't have done this lightly without, they're super research oriented and do a lot of verification and testing on this stuff. So anyway, you're going to see that over there this year. I mean, it's already out there in MDs that are going out now. The second reason for an MD would be there's a watch-in effect, and they're just updating what's going on with the ongoing storm. So this mesoscale discussion is to update tornado watch number 18. The threat continues. They'll do a summary, a 1-sentence, 2-sentence thing at the beginning that most all of us can read, and then the discussion may get into technical details there. Another reason, they don't do this often, but if they're going to upgrade, especially to a high risk, they will issue a special mesoscale discussion to tell you they're going to do that. So as soon as they made the decision and coordinated with the local offices, this is the one where they upgraded last May 6th for that severe weather outbreak day. All right, watches. Watches were a little bit more familiar with the watches. And let me stop here because we got a couple of comments on the MDs here. So let me just go back. Let's see. Yeah, like I said, there's mixed feelings about putting the tornado winds in there. Quite honestly, I have not been a fan initially. It's starting to grow on me a little bit. I do worry that people may look at those numbers and for some reason, think that it either means you're going to get a EF4 tornado, or you're going to get or it's going to be a weaker, they're forecasting weaker intensity than what you actually end up getting. So yeah, I think this is a way to kind of talk about, we're not expecting intense tornadoes today. And we could do a whole webinar on the method that they're using to do this, and it's very well thought out. But yeah, it's not everybody's thing for sure, but it's out there now. So we're gonna deal with it. We know about watches, severe thunderstorm watches. If we're expecting severe thunderstorms, tornadoes are always possible in severe thunderstorm watches, so don't ever just completely discount the potential for a tornado. Tornado watches are issued when more significant, the setup is more favorable for 2 or more tornadoes, and even significant EF2 or higher tornadoes. So we're familiar with those, and those, we're in multiple tornado watches every single year. We do have the ability to tag watches with additional little flag here, the PDS, or particularly dangerous situation. I'm just between me and you, I'm not a huge fan of this. I don't really think it's necessary in every case. I think sometimes it can cause more harm than good, in that people are obsessing over it and they think it's not going to be bad unless there's a PDS watch. But the PDS tornado watch is when there's higher confidence of multiple intense tornadoes. A PDS severe thunderstorm watch, which happens average once a year in our area, that's when we're expecting maybe that big massive line of thunderstorms that's going to produce widespread hurricane force winds or just widespread damage. We coordinate the watch with the Storm Prediction Center. Storm Prediction Center will work with each office that is potentially impacted by the watch that they're proposing. So this is the watch coordination, or one of the calls that went on last May 6th. Brian Smith, one of the SPC forecasters, on the left, and Scott Curl on the right. Brian has drawn up a draft of the watch he's proposing, and he's on the phone right now talking to the Dodge City, Wichita, Tulsa, Norman, Amarillo, and Lubbock offices, because all that watch touches all of those offices. So there's a meteorologist from each of those offices on the call. They talk to Brian, Brian talks to them, and they decide what kind of watch is it going to be, how long is it going to be in effect for, and we decide on that call exactly which counties are in or out of the watch. And so when the watch comes out, it is a unified, coordinated message. Once the watch is issued, it kind of belongs to each individual local forecast office. SPC is not responsible for clearing the counties. It's our job to do that. We also have the ability, in coordination with the SPC and our neighbors, if we need to make the area bigger or if we need to make the watch longer, we can do that. We've done that on numerous occasions. It happens pretty much every year, where the storms are moving slower than we thought and it's going to take longer for them to get out of the area, or the storms are moving faster than we thought, so we're going to need to add a row or two of counties on the east side. We can't do that unilaterally. We have to let everybody else that's in the watch know about it. But we are working to be better about clearing the counties, because I know a lot of you are kind of tied down. Once that watch is in effect for your area, you're kind of stuck until the watch is not in effect. So we are being more judicious about clearing counties as the threat ends. But sometimes if we're not clearing it, there's usually a good reason. Either we're not sure that the storms are done, or there's a potential for the dry line to move back to the west, or something like that. Some notes on watches. I think most of us realize this, but there is still confusion among some people out there. There is no relationship directly between a tornado watch and a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning. They're not tied together. It's not like in hurricanes where the hurricane watch is upgraded to a hurricane warning. These are two totally separate things. Watches are not always issued before warnings. Watches are not issued for every single severe weather event. And we talked about tornadoes happening in severe thunderstorm watches. So don't be totally surprised by a warning just because there's not a watch in effect. SPC will watch what's going on. They have alerts that go off on their computers in their operations area with sound effects and everything every single time an office anywhere in the United States issues any kind of warning, and anytime that office issues a local storm report because they have hail or wind or something going on. So they're not going to issue a watch maybe for 1 or 2 storms, 5 storms. It just depends on the situation. It's not expected to be long-lived, but that doesn't mean there won't be severe storms or warnings. There's been an information gap traditionally between the watch and the warning. We've been working hard to try to fill that gap with these graphics. We call them internally watch to warning graphics. They're kind of sometimes our own little local version of a mesoscale discussion. These are based primarily on, number one, what's going on now with the surface observations, the radar data, the satellite data, but we're also using the Warn on Forecast system extensively. And when we believe that has a good handle on what's going on currently and what it's projecting, if we have persistent signals that say, for example, the storms in far southwest Oklahoma are going to expand further toward Lawton and Chickasha in that area, if that model is painting that picture for us, we can put out a graphic like this. And things like this, we're monitoring the environment in front of developing storms. So in this particular case, this is where we had a severe storm over far southwest Oklahoma. And as it moved to the northeast, we knew that the environment over Stevens County, Grady County, Garvin County, Carter County, northern Jefferson was even more favorable for a tornado to form. So we were just giving a heads up that, hey, if you're in this red shaded area, you don't have a tornado warning yet, but this storm that's west of Waurika is coming up your way. The environment says it may be more favorable for a tornado. So pay close attention to those. We put those on social media. We're going to drop them in chat pretty much every time we issue one. So those are important information, we hope, and we really would like feedback on if you use them, how you use them, what we could do to improve. This is one of the many things we do that we're making up totally on our own. This is no headquarters directive that says we should all do this. We just started doing it. So if you have any suggestions, we love to hear them. Warnings, just the general warning philosophy for our office. When we go into the computer system to issue a warning, if we don't change anything, the default warning duration is 45 minutes for both severe thunderstorms and tornado warnings. We typically don't like to go longer than that. We will go up to an hour. In certain situations, we can go down as low as 15 minutes. We keep the warning durations in 15-minute blocks. We could issue a warning that expired at 1:40 p.m. or something like that, but we generally like to keep them in those 15-minute blocks for bookkeeping purposes and just for simplicity. We do try to make the warnings as small as possible to cover the storms, especially tornado warnings. We don't like to unnecessarily alert people, especially for tornadoes. We know that more and more communities in our area are using automated systems to activate outdoor warning devices, and some of these are based purely on polygon placement. So if a polygon barely touches the city limits of Norman, for example, if it touches one of their 4 siren sectors, those sirens, unless humans intervene, are going off automatically. So we can't always account for that when we're issuing the warnings, especially when it's really busy. We can see city limits on some of our mapping systems, but I'm not going to promise you we're going to be able to say, well, I'm going to tweak the polygon to keep it out of that past that city limit or something like that. We'll try when we can, but we won't always be able to do that. Every warning decision is made to try to maximize lead time as much as possible, and that's one of the reasons you will frequently see warning polygons overlapping. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to do that. And when the next generation of warnings comes down the pike several years from now, we won't have to worry about that as much. But right now, if that's a tornado warning right there, and we want to give Midwest City lead time, Midwest City is not in the warning right now. We can't wait until the tornado gets to the northeast edge of that polygon to issue the next warning, because Midwest City is not going to get any advance notice. So we will have to issue the new tornado warning when the tornado is crossing the river down there, Minco, Tuttle, Blanchard, Bridge Creek area. So that's going to mean there's going to be an overlap, and parts of that area will be in 2 warnings at the same time. That's unavoidable. We have to try to account also for the uncertainty in the storm motion and evolution. We've had crazy things going on in the past few years with storms moving in loops and splitting, and there's all kinds of things. So you may see some wonky polygons from time to time. We don't want to make them huge. We can make them huge and just not have to worry about it at all for 45 minutes. But if we make them too small, then we're going to have to issue more of them. So it's a balancing act for sure. Severe thunderstorm warnings, we're all kind of familiar with this. 1-inch hail or larger, 58-mile-an-hour winds or higher. The default duration is 45 minutes. Each severe thunderstorm warning will contain wind and hail tags at the bottom, where we will do our own forecast of what's the maximum expected wind gust or hail size. Will also indicate whether it is a radar indicated severe storm or if there's been some actual report that caused us to issue the warning. We also have damage threat tags. So if when we're composing the warning and we're clicking boxes and we click either the 1.75-inch hail or 70-mile-an-hour winds or greater, that's going to insert the considerable tag at the bottom. And if we do the baseball size hail and 80-mile-an-hour winds, we're going to get the destructive tag. And when we do that destructive tag, that's going to activate the wireless emergency alert system for people getting close to that polygon. So this was, we started doing this several years ago. These are dangerous storms. Any severe thunderstorm can be dangerous, but these are the ones that you probably need to be thinking about tornado-like precautions to protect yourself from these. So the wireless emergency alerts are going to go off just for severe thunderstorm warnings that have baseball size hail or larger and or 80-mile-an-hour winds. For the past couple of years, we've done about 33 WIA activations a year for severe thunderstorm warnings. So it's not uncommon. I know there were several last year that we did because of large hail primarily. We can also use this tornado possible tag at the bottom. This is used primarily to kind of cue in some of our partners, emergency management and broadcast media, into nuances about this particular severe thunderstorm warning. A lot of times we're going to use the tornado possible tag if we have these small scale little spinny things within a line of thunderstorms, affectionately known as QLCS tornadoes or meso vortices. We're going to issue tornado warnings for the areas of rotation that we believe are most likely to produce a tornado. Those will get a tornado warning. But sometimes we could do 18 tornado warnings up and down the line. We're going to focus on the ones most likely to produce a tornado, and the other areas will get this tornado possible tag. In a perfect world, we would have 100% verification or probability of detection on tornadoes. Every tornado would get a tornado warning. That's not happening. It's not going to happen this year. I don't know when it would ever happen in the future, just because some of these tornadoes are so fast to develop, fast to evolve. They're there and gone before the radar scan is updated sometimes. So we're not going to be able to issue a warning for every one of them. That's just the fact of life. And recent stats, we use the tornado possible tag pretty sparingly. Only about 5 to 10% of severe thunderstorm warnings or updates to those warnings has that tornado possible tag. So we don't, I mean, you could put that in any severe thunderstorm warning technically, but we're going to reserve it for the ones that, meet that criteria. Tornado warning means a tornado is developing or occurring. Again, we can set the duration. The default is 45, but we can go 15 or 30 if needed. We also have tags at the bottom of tornado warnings. We have 3 levels of tornado warnings. So there's one that's just the radar indicated or just the observed tag that we can have. Most tornado warnings have those. If we get into a situation where we have very strong radar indications that a tornado is doing damage, usually that's going to be a debris signature somehow that we're picking up on radar. Or if we have visual information or reports that indicate a damaging tornado is occurring or is imminent, we can use that considerable tag to just get that warning some more attention. And the worst case scenario is the tornado emergency or the catastrophic tag. We have very specific criteria for when we would issue a tornado emergency, and really it's in honesty, it's in a large part of the criteria informally is we kind of know it when we see it, we think, but we do have some numbers and some criteria. There has to be a tornado that is presenting an imminent threat, a severe threat to life in the area. We believe catastrophic damage is imminent or ongoing, and we're not going to issue a tornado emergency based solely on radar imagery. It will maybe verify the need for a tornado emergency, but it's almost always, or pretty much always, is going to be, we're going to have to have some visual confirmation of a tornado. It's not going to be enough to have somebody, screaming there's a wedge or something like that. We're going to have to see it. We don't want to issue these if we don't have to. We actually issued the first tornado emergency since 2016 on May 19th of last year for Custer City. That was kind of that marginal slight risk event that we talked about moving down I-40. Forecasters who were here felt that these criteria were met, and This was a large, very large tornado, as evidenced by media and other reports that we were getting. And there was high confidence that if this tornado did impact a populated area, that there could have been, intense damage. There were mobile radar crews out there that did measure, much higher winds than the EF rating would indicate with that. So that's a tornado emergency. We hope we don't have to issue another one for a long, long time. But if you see one of those, we're not playing around with that. I mean, it's going to be a big deal if we issue one of those. Severe weather statements, you should monitor those. Those are updates to warnings. We use those to cancel parts of a warning, to update the hail size, to update the location. We could change the tornado category and go from considerable to catastrophic. We can update the storm motion. Those severe weather statements are just as important as a warning. And what happens now on TV stations, for example, is the severe weather statement will replace the crawl at the bottom of the screen. So it will have the most updated information. It also replaces the warning on NOAA weather radio. So you do not ignore those severe thunderstorm or those severe weather statements. They are the warning as we continue to update it. Just some other little tidbits of information here, just based on recent events. And this is from the past couple of years. Just reminders: storms, tornadoes never move in a straight line or at a constant speed. These things are made of air and water. They're constantly evolving. So you have to constantly be aware of that storm motion. Like I said earlier, we've had some wacky stuff happening with storms turning, and well, it's wacky. It's not unusual. I mean, we know storms do that, but it's caught some people off guard. Even on moderate high-risk days, most people are not going to get a tornado. Most people aren't going to get a storm. Some people won't even see rain. Some people will barely see clouds. Contrary to popular belief, severe weather chances frequently increase after dark. Just because it's dark and the sun's not shining anymore, the temperatures may be getting cooler at the ground, but there's all kinds of other stuff that causes severe weather at other levels of the atmosphere. So don't be surprised, and don't just assume that severe weather chances are going to go down just because the sun goes down. It does not have to be warm and sunny to get severe weather. It can be cloudy and 65 degrees all day, and we have a significant tornado that afternoon or evening. The stereotypical severe weather day is muggy in the 80s, dew points around 70, and you see the puffy white cumulus clouds forming. That's kind of the standard model that we're so used to. But just because it's cloudy, just because it's not hot outside, does not mean there is no severe weather risk. And as good as we think we will ever be with the forecast and outlooks and watches, the forecast is going to change through the day. Even on the day of severe weather, locations, the intensity, the timing is going to change. So don't lock into a forecast 3 days in advance and think that you're going to be ready. It's inevitable the forecast is going to change. Some challenges that we face here. This is something we talk about every single year, but it's important to realize that we have a significant number of events that we call low probability, high impact events. They're common and they're exceptionally challenging to explain to people how they work, especially the public. Generally, I mean, basically what this means is it's probably not going to happen, but if it does, it could be really bad. So there's been numerous occasions where we've had strong and even violent tornadoes that happened on a day like this. There was a day back in 2003 where we had an F4 tornado go through parts of Newcastle, Oklahoma City more at rush hour. We argued back and forth with the Storm Projection Center to upgrade the outlook because of this concentrated area, but the feeling was there was only going to be one storm. Well, there was only one storm, but it produced an F4 tornado. So these events are hard to deal with because it's usually involving the cap. And if the cap breaks, things are going to get bad. But we may sit here all day under an enhanced risk, wondering if the cap's going to break. And then we all go home at 7 or 8 o'clock with nothing happening, not even a drop of rain. And we do have challenges. I just want you to know what's going on in the office here with these events that are evolving. And we talk about turning the ship. We've got this big, huge ship that we've been steering in a direction, in some cases for days. But when we start seeing signs that the event is, maybe it's not going to be as bad as we thought. Maybe the cap is stronger than we thought. Maybe it's going to impact a different area, different timing. Sometimes maybe it's going to be worse than we thought it was going to be. Sometimes it starts to become apparent the later we get into the event that this really ain't going to happen at all. These are exceptionally challenging. These are when we're going to be using NWS chat to try to give you the more nuanced messages about, this is what we're seeing now. This is what the models are saying. We're not canceling or downgrading anything, but this may not be turning out like we thought it would. It's very hard to message that to the public on social media and things like that. And the media has a challenge with that too. So I don't have answers for this. I think most of you realize that this does happen, but this has been a thing this past season for sure. We had events that were worse than forecast. We had events that happened different timing than what people were expecting. We sat around all day in a moderate or a high risk with not much happening, and then all hell breaks loose after dark. So these events are going to happen, and know that we're working as hard as we can to do the best we can with these. So I always end up with these things, these presentations talking about how important reports are. We need your information. We don't know what's happening in your county unless you tell us. So in real time, your reports can help validate what we're seeing on radar. We can include that information in warnings and statements and make decisions based on that information. Those reports immediately after help us decide whether we're going to be, sending crews out to do damage surveys in the morning. Our regional and national headquarters are breathing down our necks to get information, and rightfully so, but we need to brief them. And later, even if we get your reports days, weeks after an event, that can help us with event documentation. So it's the standard thing we talk about in spotter training. We need damage reports if you're an emergency manager, public safety agency, a tribal nation. If you're flying drones around and you're willing to share those images and video with us, I cannot tell you how valuable that is. If we could, we love the drone images and video. That really helps us when we can't do damage surveys, or even if we can, to see places we can't get to. We're looking at media, we're looking at social media to get images and video. If you're there doing already preliminary damage assessments and you can share that information with us, we appreciate that. And drones, we love those. And a lot of times there's confusion sometimes with public safety. That or share it, but it's our 800 number, 800-275-1136. That rings in our operations area 24 hours a day, every single day of the year. And someone is going to answer that phone, and that's where you call for any weather report, request for information. NWS chat, remember, if you have an account that you haven't used in a while, it may have been deactivated, check on that. You can email us. This is our new email address we're going to be trying to monitor, nws.norman@noaa.gov. We do still have amateur radio equipment in the office, and for state of Oklahoma emergency management, we are on SEMA 3 on the 800 megahertz OQWIN system, so you can call Norman Weather on there.